Hey, this is Raoul Monks, founder and director of Flume Sales Training. Thank you for joining our Flume Sales Chat, where we're joined today by Chloe Richardson. Hi, Chloe.
Hello, afternoon.
Hey. So Chloe runs Acier Events and is an expert in exhibition sales strategy and also rebook coaching and process management. And we've asked Chloe to join us today to talk to us about the importance of turning non-commercial opportunities or conversations into much more commercial opportunities. And interestingly, Chloe's an expert in language and how to hold emotive and empathetic conversations. So really, really keen to hear what is going to happen today. So Chloe, tell us a ton bit about yourself and how you're kind of viewing things right now in the industry.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me on, Raoul, first of all. And so my name's Chloe. I run Acier Events, and we are a exhibition sales company, and we focus primarily on sales strategy, but also how to really use conversation and communication and language to get the best out of your sales opportunity, which often pre-pandemic was very much focused on that face-to-face interaction, that human connection. And now, as we've moved into this environment where we're all working from home and relying on the digital and virtual world, it's about how we can adapt our language and our communication skills to get the most out of the current situation. So I think from a client and customer and sales exhibitions perspective, things have really changed over the last few months, obviously. But from a communication standpoint, we've seen, for example, the use of phones completely made redundant now. That smiling and dialing strategy is irrelevant because most people don't have their work phones anymore. People and companies are looking to adapt their strategies to get the most out of these new digital opportunities. And they're also refocusing the way that they communicate, not just what they're saying, but by which channels they're saying it. So we've seen where it may have been phone and face-to-face comms. Now it's very much email communications, LinkedIn, Slack, some people even doing a lot more WhatsApp messaging with their prospects and with their customers. So it's been a very different transition from that in-office communication tool, transitioning into that working from home culture where it's very much we have to put ourselves in a position where we can communicate with our clients more effectively.
Really interesting. So a question for you. We've had a lot of people talk to us. We do a lot of training and we hear salespeople saying to us that they're still measured on call rates. Mm-hmm. And I've got comments on this and ideas around this, but just interested based on what you just said just then in terms of the way that people are messaging, and also I assume therefore the way that clients are receiving and wanting to receive conversation, that may not be the best way of looking at things. What's your take on the whole number of calls thing?
I think personally I would agree that it's not the way forward. Unfortunately, long-term business is not based on how many calls a person does. Obviously there is some impact. The more calls you do, the more statistically likely you are to convert some of those into wins. Yeah. But I guess the thing is, if those calls aren't of quality, actually that reduces the likelihood of that option, and it actually it dilutes your pool of resources, of data, of lead generation. And so actually for me, I think it's important for companies now more than ever to measure their staff based on success or based on customer-centric focuses. So that may be actually getting feedback from every customer and finding out at what point of the conversation did they decide to engage, or getting feedback in terms of how happy they are with the relationship they have with their account manager. Or even if they said no, it's a question of why did you say no and what can we learn from this? So it's all well and good having KPIs based on those tangible kind of volume figures, but actually that isn't telling us why people are succeeding, and it isn't telling us how we can make our sales teams do better if it's just a case of let's look at a number. That doesn't give us much information, in fact.
So you, I think, probably just answered this question, but I am keen to kind of get your take, because at Flume we're very, very focused on this whole put the client first, get in the client's shoes. And I know it's a big philosophy for you as well. Mm-hmm. And you use the phrase client centricity. You just mentioned it just then. And I think to a degree, you gave some reasons just then why it's so important now. But in this time of incredibly tough time that people are going through right now, why do you think that's even more important than normal, if indeed you do think that?
Yeah, I think being client-centric as a brand obviously puts your customers and your prospects at the very heart of everything you do. So that means you're constantly adapting your business to provide solutions that actually work for your clients. If you don't have your clients at the heart of everything, then you're blinded as to really your objective and why you're providing them with a solution in the first place. Yeah. And now putting yourself in your client's shoes and understanding that they are still trying to acclimatize with the world around them will make the sales conversation very different. And if you're looking for that long-term account management, now is the time to establish yourself as a company and a brand who really are, one, invested in their clients, not just from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And all that will do is make you more credible, so that further along the line, if we do start the face-to-face events going again soon, you will already be in pride of place as an organization who has shown that they care about their customers, because that's what's going to matter, and that's going to give you the competitive advantage in the long-term account management perspective.
Yeah, so this long-term bit's really interesting, and we're at Flume starting to see feels like we're in kind of almost stage 2 at the moment of the lockdown and the panic, and then this kind of new normal setting in. I think that's both for salespeople and also for clients as well. And there's this realization, actually, maybe we need to start doing making the most out of this situation, which sounds a horrible thing to say, but you understand what I mean. Mm-hmm. I'm keen in terms of kind of that long-term idea you just mentioned then, is client centricity. Like, how important is it to what's going to happen when or a salesperson or a company comes out the back of this, if they can be client centric right now?
I think being client centric right now, as a customer focus, shows your customers and prospects that you do have them at the heart of the business. So sort of by word of mouth, by reputation, it means you're more established. But also from a brand presence perspective, if you are in the industry as a brand that's put their customers first, you are going to adapt, you're going to change, and you're going to be creative and flexible, which means that, yeah, we've conquered this hurdle, we can conquer many other hurdles. So it will only enhance your reputation on the stage of the sort of sales world if you've shown you can be adaptable and put your clients first. And I think for those that don't, they are going to lose a large part of the market share over the next 6 to 12 months, because they are going to lose their customers to exhibition organizers who really do put them at the front of their business and do make sure the customer is the center of their business model.
Okay. So your background, which I find really interesting, you've got some history around kind of language tuition, also translation. I know it's something you're really passionate about when we chatted before. And I'm really eager to learn a little bit about this, because it's not something I know tons about. So in terms of the language and use of language right now for salespeople, companies, marketers, like, how important is that? Why is that important? And what should we be thinking about?
So the main thing really is we have taken out so many normal forms of communication, so many ways for people to make a first impression, so many ways for people to interact and connect on a human level. They've been removed. So body language and facial expressions, for example, which were the biggest players in how to interact with somebody and how to make that first impression, they've been taken away. So what that means is how we say and what we say are now so much more important than they may have been 3 months ago, because you have nothing else to judge somebody by. So that leads us to the importance of language and communication. And essentially, it's not just saying language as a foreign language, which is important and does play its role, because, like I've mentioned to you before, Raoul, I think that if you can pick up a little bit of language so you can communicate with your customers or your prospects in their mother tongue, already you're enhancing and establishing a really strong bond right from the start. So there's that element of it. But there's also the way that you communicate with someone in their native tongue. So if you're speaking to someone who is an English speaker and you've got a relationship with them already, or they're a new customer, you need to really be communicating in the way that is best for them. So that can be the way that you say things. If they're really blunt and if they're quite short and if they clearly don't have much time, mirror that with statistics, with facts, really play to their way of communicating to you. And again, it's their preference of communication. So if somebody says to you, or keeps on replying to you via LinkedIn rather than email, you have to learn, okay, LinkedIn is their communication preference. Absolutely fine. And so it's capitalizing on that. Some people might prefer to do a Zoom call. Some people will hate it. That's when you've got to put your communication head onto the body of your client and say, right, this is how they want to communicate. I'm giving them value rather than taking it away. So I need to mirror their style. I need to mirror their language where I can, and I need to mirror their preferred communication channel.
Okay, really interesting. So there's a big piece there around kind of mirroring and also kind of tapping into the personality type, but now it's more around the new behavior they're demonstrating right now, because that might be completely different from what they're demonstrating 6 weeks ago because of the pressures they're under, right?
Exactly. Some people will have loads of time. So some people at the moment, some of your clients or prospects might be so desperate to speak to somebody on a human level that they may end up having a chat with you for 2 hours that ordinarily may have taken 20 minutes. Brilliant. Others may be so busy with a team of 300 that they're trying to manage remotely. And it's a case of they would just want to be given facts and figures, a 2-minute message, no messing around. And that's also fine. It's what works for them. And we as exhibition organisers need to stop caring as much about how we should be doing things based on our internal processes, but actually how our customers like things to be done.
Random question, but I'm going to ask it. So you mentioned about before the crisis, we had body language and it was able to communicate in that way, which we'll know is hugely impactful on the recipient in terms of the message they take on. But we've still got Zoom, right? We've still got Microsoft, and we've still got all of these different hangout places where their body language is still there to a degree. Any tips as to kind of this type of conversation and what works and what doesn't? I think because so many people are not used to this, apart from having done it maybe with their mates, or maybe they're getting used to doing it at the weekend with a quiz or whatever with the family. But like, what is good practice on here?
I think what we've all got to remember is this is new. Even though some people Zoom from time to time and have done for the last year or so, this isn't the way that we're all used to communicating 100% of the time. So we've all got to intentionally adapt the way that we use it to maximize the potential. So like you were just doing then, Raoul, and like I've been doing, it's all about gesticulating. It's about keeping that eye contact. Don't look down unless you have to. And it's really great to be writing notes, but sometimes remember they can't see the context. You might just look like you're bored if you're sat there writing notes, even though you're really engaged in what they're saying. Yeah. If you're not constantly lifting your head up, making that eye contact, agreeing with them, you risk losing that human connection that, yes, of course we can see each other moving on Zoom, but actually it needs to be even more heightened and amplified than we would do in normal life, so that they can really get that connection through the computer screen.
So 2 things I've just learned just then: don't write notes and look down. And number 1, look at the camera, don't look at your eyes, right?
Yeah, well, mix and match, flip between. Bit of a mix, we like that.
Okay, I just learned some stuff there. Good, thank you. So I'm interested kind of to move back into the original conversation, the flow we're in. So the touch points, the normal kind of touch points along which a buyer and a seller would go through. What do you feel's changed along those in terms of kind of the language and communication at the moment? What's working, what's not, what mistakes? Tell us what you know.
So before the crisis, I think a lot of exhibition organisers knew that they had to throw in some extra touch points over the sales cycle that weren't just commercially focused, but didn't always have the time to do it. It wasn't the priority. And frankly, we'll put that at the bottom of the list. Now, there is no way of avoiding this. We have to address the way that we talk to our clients in terms of actually having a structure of milestones and touch points that aren't just primarily to get money off of people. So in the past, it might have been getting in touch to follow up on a contract, getting in touch to chase an invoice, getting in touch to pitch or negotiate. They're all still going to be important, but we need to actually sort of map those out with touch points that have no commercial focus. So this can be celebrating a birthday. This could be asking somebody how they're doing. This could be, if it's a celebration, a yearly celebration, so it might be Christmas or it might be Easter. It's about getting in those human touch points into your sales cycle, which are telling your customers that A, you don't just see them as a money pot, and B, you're invested in them as a business, but also as a person. And I mean, I'll give you some examples. I have some clients who they've had new children, they've had babies born, they've had birthdays. I've put them in my diary and I've made sure that I've sent a card the following year to their business to say happy birthday, or to say happy 1 year to your baby girl, or something like that. And things like that give you that competitive advantage, and they are touch points which every exhibition organizer should really be enforcing from high level as well. These need to be in your blueprint. These need to be part of your internal structure. We will spend 50% of our communication time with our customers talking about things that are not commercially focused. And where people didn't have to necessarily do that in the past, I think they should have anyway. What I think we'll learn from now is the importance of those non-commercial communication points and what they can mean in terms of those long-term relationships. And hopefully the things we develop as a strategy during this time we'll be using once normal life resumes, and we'll keep up those non-commercial touch points. And I think everyone is going to see long-term revenue growth for the next few decades if they stick to that kind of milestone touch point mentality.
So one of my favorite examples about this recently that I've heard was a sales chat I did with a lady called Emma Lang. We'll put a link down below on that, but she's from MarTech Tracker, and what she talked about is how Jordan, her MD, immediately went through this process which kind of freed them to have the right conversations and communicate more. So what they did there is they removed all targets and just focused on outcomes, like what's the outcome going to be this week? What do you want to work towards? Then what they did is a very simple communicate times 10. So it was, if you normally do one LinkedIn, obviously my math is going to be bad here, but do 5. If you normally do 3 calls to a client in a month, do 15. Yeah. And because the target had been removed and the stress levels are gone, it allowed Emma and the rest of the team to really connect with their clients in a different way. And they found that human approach, that genuine, authentic human conversation is what then helped it turn into commercial conversations, because people are looking for friends right now, not people who are out for themselves. What's your take on that?
That's it. I think if you're establishing that human connection early on, actually your sales are going to come as a byproduct. You're not going to need to spend all your time working out how do I pitch this, how do I pitch that, because you've done most of the work by establishing that connection at the early stages when you've communicated properly in a way that suits the client. And that's really important. And as well, it's about giving them value. So it's not just about messaging saying, oh, how are you, how are things going? It's giving them insights, giving them knowledge. It's telling them how other people in the industry are doing and how maybe they can benefit from that. It's about making yourselves a solution partner rather than just a marketing platform. And that is what many customers have seen Exhibition World as in the past, just a stream to market, right? For lead generation and brand activation. But actually we are so much more than that. And now is really the chance to show every industry in the world that if you engage with an exhibition and with the exhibition industry, what you're going to get out of that is a solution that's going to give you long-term insight, knowledge, and relevant conversation that are going to help you as a business.
If I was listening to this and I was skeptical and I was thinking, well, it's all nice and well, but it sounds a little bit fluffy. Like, is it really worth it? I've got to get my money in now because that's what my boss said. Like, what would your advice be to someone in that mindset?
I think it's difficult when we are in a number-led, tangible industry of sales. I think what we all need to remember, and now more than ever, is that it is about not just the next 6 months. It isn't about, right, who can get the most numbers in 6 months and then everyone drops out. It's like when you rebook on site. It's all well and good rebooking and getting 100% on site. But if they're all going to drop out in 2 months because they didn't have a really good, engaging on-site experience, what's the point? And I guess a salesperson who's thinking, I just need to make my numbers, really needs to put themselves in a position as, if they were a consumer, would they invest in somebody who just pitched to them and never spoke to them again? Or would they invest in somebody who seemed to care about them as a person? And consumers, clients, and customers are all people. And at the end of the day, they want to feel like someone's investing in them, just as any of us would. And so I think it's important that salespeople really think about how putting themselves in the client's shoes, as simple as it seems, and thinking, right, we're all in a turbulent situation right now. I would want someone to offer me support. Therefore, I'm going to do that for them. And I know that I'm going to get long-term results, which is, I've said the word about 50,000 times, but it really is the point of this. If we're only focusing on up until September, half of us are going to go under before then. Whereas if we're really focusing on the long term, that established great connection that we've got now is going to be what gets us there.
Okay, fab. So, Chloe, thank you so much for your time today. Just to sum up a couple of kind of nuggets that I've taken away. So, I don't know that these are in the right order, but number one is this idea of kind of listen, notice, and react and be agile to how your clients are communicating right now, and where you can mirror, not just in terms of the phrases they use, but how they're actually communicating as well. Some nice nuggets around Zoom that I'm doing wrong. So look into the camera and also don't look down the notes. Sorry about that. But you've got this other piece around being human right now, being human, and that the necessity to connect with people is really, really big. So noticing some of the small things and not just prioritizing the touch points which are commercial, but prioritizing the ones that said, you know what, I actually genuinely care about you. And the third bit I got is this idea of when you're communicating with clients, Work out what you're learning and why it worked or why it didn't work, and adapt continuously, and even ask your clients. I think it's a great bit of advice. Ask for feedback from your clients as to what's working, what's not working in your approach, because they know you're trying to do it for the right reasons, and you can start creating things that are going to work for them and you. Chloe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us right now. Hopefully you can use some of this stuff in your business. I'm sure Chloe would be very happy if you guys wanted to carry on the conversation after here. If you want to get in contact with us, then we're here for you as much as we can throughout this crisis.